Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is July 28, 2024, and in this video we are going to talk all about temporary protected status, TPS. We will answer the questions like what TPS is, who can apply for it, how to apply for it, what does the process entail. So if that's the questions that you have, hopefully in this video they will be answered. Before beginning this video, I will mention, as I mentioned in every video on this channel, I am not an immigration attorney. This is not legal advice. All the information that will be provided in this video will be directly from official government source, US Citizenship and Immigration Services website, USCIS.gov. So I recommend you follow along if you are interested in applying for TPS, and open up yourself USCIS.gov page. This is what the front page looks like, and we can learn all about the TPS status either from topics right here, because this is where they put all the most accessed topics, and you can find the temporary protected status link right here, or you can just type in the search bar right here, either temporary protected status or TPS, and it will come up. So we're going to click on this and it will open up the page dedicated specifically to the temporary protected status. The very first thing that we're going to discuss is what the TPS is. So whenever it comes to the designation of the countries, it is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security that designates, makes a decision and designates and makes it into the legislation, designating the countries that are eligible, the nationals of which countries are eligible to apply for temporary protected status. With that being said, one of the main things, if you want to determine your eligibility, whether you are eligible to apply for temporary protected status or not, this would be probably a good idea to verify it right now and make sure whether you can apply for it or not, and check the designated countries, which are located right here, right underneath this tab. What is TPS? Countries currently designated for TPS. So click on the drop down and you will see the countries that are currently designated for TPS. So if you're a national of one of these countries, or if last place of residence, or this is where you reside, let's say you're a national of another country but you resided, for example, in Afghanistan until you came to the United States. Currently Afghanistan is designated for the TPS, which means that there is some kind of circumstances, and that goes again to the definition of the TPS, some kind of circumstances in a designated country that prevent you safely returning back to that country. That's why you are requesting to have temporary protected status in the United States, remain legally in the United States, have the ability to work in the United States, and have the ability to request a travel document if you want to travel somewhere else, obviously other than the country that you are claiming the temporary protected status from, which should be obviously, the common sense. You don't come here, get the temporary protected status from, let's say, Cameroon, and then get a travel document and travel to Cameroon. Doesn't make sense. All right, hopefully that's self-explanatory. Now, there are a few criteria that are required in order for you to be able to apply, besides the designated countries. Obviously, the first one is that your country has to be listed here. If it is not, for example, the list of these countries always changes. So if we scroll down a little bit lower, we will see that there is a list of countries previously designated for TPS. And there's Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone currently, as of right now. Today is July 28, 2024. Again, this list always changes. So you have to get the most updated information. This is where you get it. I will put this link in the description below of this video so you can access it directly, this page right here. But as you can see, some countries are removed from the list, depending on the circumstances in the country. Some countries are added. Now, to briefly and really quickly answer what circumstances that arise in the country that can potentially put that country on the TPS designated list. Well, we got a few: ongoing armed conflict, such as civil war, An environmental disaster, such as earthquake or hurricane or an epidemic, other extraordinary and temporary conditions. Again, anything that prevents you safely returning back to that country, it can potentially put that country on that designated list. But again, it has to be on that list for you to be able to apply for TPS. Okay, now, what is another criterion that is required for you to be able to apply for the TPS? Well, let's go to now eligibility requirements. This is the third drop down here. I'm going to click on that. To be eligible for TPS, you must be a national of the country designated for TPS. We already discussed that. File during the open initial registration or re-registration period. Re-registration applies is, for example, let's say you already have temporary protected status and you have remained in the United States for, let's say, 6 months, but you find out that the designated country, they prolonged the registration period, so now you have the ability to re-register and prolong your stay under the TPS in the United States. That's where the re-registration applies. Now, another one, very important one, and it's a big question that usually comes up. Do you have to be in the United States to apply for TPS? Yes. You have been continuously physically present in the United States since the effective date of the most recent designation date of your country. And it's not or, you see, it's and, so it's both of these apply. Have been continuously residing in the United States since the date specified for your country. So not only you had to be physically present here, you also had to maintain your residence in the United States. So again, because TPS allows you to legally work in the United States, obviously you're working, you're supporting yourself, you're maintaining residence, you're paying taxes, you're doing all of these things that people that have permanent residence in the United States are doing. All right, so that's one of the requirements that you have to show that you are maintaining that residence. Obviously, in a lot of situations, this is going to apply for re-registration to show that yes, you actually were residing in the United States and you didn't just got your temporary protected status and then went somewhere else and you were residing somewhere else, right? But for the initial registration, yes, you have to be continuously physically present in the US in order to apply for the TPS. Now, a few things that will make you ineligible to apply for the TPS. You may not be eligible for TPS if you have been convicted of any kind of felony or 2 or more misdemeanors committed in the United States. So they give you an option for 1 misdemeanor, but I don't recommend having any misdemeanors at all because it will raise questions. You don't want to do that. Are found inadmissible as an immigrant under applicable grounds, are subject to any of the mandatory bars to asylum, and I want to concentrate on this very quickly, found inadmissible as an immigrant under applicable grounds. It can be a lot of things. It can be a lot of different things. But one question that a lot of times comes up is, what if I overstay my visa in the United States and then apply for the TPS? Will it create problems? Potentially, yes. Because overstaying your visa, it potentially puts you into that gray area where Department of Homeland Security, whether you're dealing with the executive branch, whether you are in the immigration court, whether you are dealing with the Board of Appeals, it can be a potential no based on the inadmissibility because you overstayed or illegal entry or something along those lines. So you definitely don't want to be in that situation. So if you are eligible to apply for TPS and you're still in a legal status in the United States, then don't wait for that status to expire. All right. Are subject to any of the mandatory bars to asylum. These include but are not limited to participating in the persecution of another individual or engaging in or inciting terrorist activity. Obviously, common sense. Don't do that. Fail to meet the continuous physical presence and continuous residence in the United States requirements. Big question. No, you cannot apply for TPS outside of the United States. You have to be present. You have to maintain presence here. Fail to meet initial or late initial TPS registration requirements. If granted TPS, you fail to re-register for TPS as required without good cause. So sometimes we have extraordinary circumstances you might be able to explain, but if you do have, if that applies to you, if you do have a valid TPS right now, make sure that you're staying on top of the dates, how long you have that TPS, how long it's valid for, and if there is re-registration, make sure that you are re-registering for it. Okay, now that we determined, now you know for sure whether or not you can apply for TPS. How do you do it? Well, there is only one form that is required of you in order to apply. It's the application for temporary protected status, I-821. If you click on what to file, it will come up right here. So whenever it comes to the forms to register, whether you're registering or re-registering for TPS, form I-821, application for temporary protected status. I do have the separate video on going step by step through the whole application. So if you are actually sitting down and applying, go through that video, and you can, whether you're doing it online or you're doing it by mail, I would recommend doing it online. Makes it a lot easier, makes it a lot faster, prevents a lot of mistakes, and makes the payment much easier too, makes submitting the evidence a lot easier too, because you're simply uploading stuff online. So if you can't do that, I would highly recommend doing that. And yes, you can follow along the I-821 video that I have on this channel. It is the most updated one for 2024, so make sure you're watching the updated one, but make sure to check the edition date to make sure that we are on the same page. And in that video I talk about how much the application is, where to file if you're filing it by mail, and then required initial evidence. So again, all of that will be there. But coming back, what to file. So there's I-821 that you can do either online or by mail. And then whenever it comes to the evidence, again, you would have an option to either upload it online or print it out copies. Never send originals, you're sending the copies, and send it as an application package by mail. You have identity, obviously, identity and nationality evidence showing that you are really a national of the designated country. Date of entry evidence, date of entry into the United States, makes sense. You will be pulling up most of the times a travel record, I-94. I do have the video on this channel how to pull up that record if you want to, if you have questions on how to do that. Continuous residence evidence, and to demonstrate that you have been in the United States, makes sense. The documents that can demonstrate that you have been in the United States can be tax returns, can be lease agreement with your landlord, can be bank statements, can be utility bills that you're paying every month. You get the point. Basically, there's a lot of options. Any documents that's not in English must be accompanied with English translation. The translator must certify it. It's not anything that is particularly crazy. Really quickly, anybody can translate it. All right, anybody who speaks, let's say you're translating from English. Let's say it's a document in Spanish, and you obviously need to translate it to English. So anybody who speaks both English and Spanish, they can translate it for you. Yes, it can be your aunt, no problems at all. She can translate it for you, and at the bottom there would have to be her certification saying that I, Jane Doe, am certifying that this is a translation of whatever document it is, and I know fluently English and I know fluently Spanish, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and here's my number. It doesn't have to be notarized, but if you do notarize her signature signing that she certifies that this is legit translation, it's not gonna hurt. All right, so you get the point. So whenever it comes to identity, nationality evidence, obviously, passport, birth certificate, stuff like that. If you don't have the primary evidence, if you do not have any of like, for example, like passport or a birth certificate or a national identity document, happens sometimes. Proof of your unsuccessful efforts to obtain such document, an explanation why the consular process for your country was unavailable for you. So in some circumstances you might not have it, but there are options. So again, make sure to go through what is required. I go over it in IA-21 video, so if you need to know more about the process of actually applying, it is there. Fees, whenever it comes to the fees, there is a fee for IA-21, and currently we're going to go to the fee schedule. Now that I mentioned it, might as well, I'll show it to you. So this is the fee schedule page, G1055 fee schedule. So just click on the drop down and type 821, application for temporary protected status. So currently the initial application is $50 plus additional fees. Additional fees is biometric services fee. So you're doing the fingerprint, they're taking a picture of you. That's after the application is submitted. So $80. But if it is a re-registration, it is $0 plus additional fees. Most likely you will still have to pay the biometrics fee to redo the biometrics, because you have to redo biometrics depending on what kind of application it is, either 6 months or a year. So chances are that. So it's not one of those $500, $600 applications. It's not that expensive. So there you go. Keep in mind that these update. Yeah, there is a possibility to apply for a fee waiver. If you don't want to pay that, then you can file a form I-912, a fee waiver, and request the fee to be waived. But keep in mind that if you are requesting that, you would actually have to file it by mail. Now, when and where to file, you can find that in the IA-21 video that I've done on this channel. Again, I would recommend doing it online, because then you don't have to worry about where to file, which address to file your paper application, because it automatically goes where it has to go. Briefly about the application process. Once you submit the application, they review it. If everything is good, they accept it. They send you the notice of receipt that they receive the application. That's the date that you can, and you will have the receipt number on that notice of receipt, which you can use on USCIS.gov website in order to check the status of your application. So once they need the biometrics, they will schedule the biometrics. You will have to bring the notice of the biometrics. They call it ASC. So you bring it there. They do the fingerprint. They take a picture of you, and that's really it. After that, USCIS determines your eligibility, and then they respond with whether you are approved, hopefully, or not. Now, a few things I'm going to mention in this video. We're not going to go over all of this, but I would recommend going through all of this for you if you are interested in TPS, how to maintain the TPS. Makes sense. A few things that I wanted to mention is, yes, with the temporary protected status, you are eligible to work in the United States of America. Whenever it comes to the Employment Authorization Document, you do have to apply for it. All right. So while you're applying for TPS, you might as well also consider applying for the Employment Authorization Document. I do have the video on how to do that, how to submit the application I-765. So definitely check it out. Also, you are eligible to travel. If you maintain your TPS in the US, you are eligible to travel, but you do have to apply for the travel document. It is the application I-131, application for travel document. Again, I do have a video on this channel on how to fill it out, how to submit it, where to submit it. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. But that's really it. Another very popular question that I wanted to answer at the very end of this video is, are you eligible to apply for permanent residence based on having that temporary protected status? And the answer is no. Having the temporary protected status does not lead to eligibility for the permanent residence, as of right now at least. So keep that in mind. But that's really it. Hopefully that summarizes well what the temporary protected status is and how to obtain it and to find out whether you're eligible or not. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I do have a Q&A section on this channel where I go through all of the comments and answer them one by one. So I'll try to get to your questions as soon as possible. It might take me some time, but I'll try to get to it. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. God bless, and I will see you in the next video.